No matter what hour your clock strikes, here it's always Halloween. And I'm always your haunted host, Luce Tomlin Brenner. Welcome to Small Frights Friday. On these very special episodes, I like to share a curated selection of calls from the All Hallows Hotline and letters from the eeeekmail mailbag. If you have a Halloween memory, recommendation, or query that you'd like to share, you can call us at 802-532-DEAD or write us a letter at itsalwayshalloweenpodcast@gmail.com. Now that it's the calendar Halloween season, we are getting an influx of new lanterns. Welcome! If you're new to the podcast, I encourage you to start listening from the beginning. The episodes build on each other, especially the history episodes. So when we say calendar Halloween, that is to indicate August, September, and October, the months when Halloween is traditionally celebrated. But the true lanterns out there know that no calendar can boss us around. That's why we say at the top of the show, no matter what hour your clock strikes, it's always Halloween. So yeah, I don't really get into the Halloween countdowns because one, I actually don't want to rush Halloween, and two, it's counting down to the day of Halloween. But all of us who are passionate are not just celebrating one day. We're celebrating all of the traditions, all of the activities, all of the community, every single aspect of Halloween. We want to ring it out. We want to roll around in it like it's a big old pile of leaves. So to count down to one day, Halloween is more than a day, a month, 3 months. We need the whole year for Halloween. So that's what we do here at It's Always Halloween. So we started saying calendar Halloween so that people wouldn't say real Halloween or in any way diminish the very important work we do to turn every single holiday into Halloween. Remember, every holiday is Halloween, except for in June, then it's Pride. Those are our only two holidays. Helping us on this very important mission is the Patreon Ghoul Gang. This coterie of Halloween diehards are responsible for fully producing every episode of It's Always Halloween and keeping us ad-free, independent, and sustainable. I'm bone-rattlingly excited to welcome our newest members this week. Grab your flashlights and join us for some endless trick-or-treating. It's so great to have you here, Hillary, Callie, Emily, and a very dear friend of mine. We've been friends for almost 20 years. Kitty, welcome to the Patreon Ghoul Gang. So great to have you here. I can't believe we've been friends for almost half our lives. I remember 2 Halloween parties at my apartment in college that you came to that we had quite a good time at. I'll have to dig up some pictures to share. Lanterns, if you love It's Always Halloween and you'd like to help us produce the podcast and get an extra heaping of Halloween thrills, spills, and chills each month, then you just have to go to patreon.com/itsalwayshalloween or click that easy link in our show notes. One of the best reasons to join the Ghoul Gang is to just connect to the Lantern community on our Discord. It's our private online forum where you can connect over all things Halloween year-round. We have channels for jack-o'-lanterns, costumes, artists, memes. I mean, it goes on and on and on. There is a specific channel dedicated to every topic of Halloween, and people are in there all day, all night, sharing really interesting stories, news, funny things they see on the internet. I can barely keep up with it. It's like its own branch of the podcast. And as we trot closer to calendar Halloween, there's just more and more and more stuff shared there every single day. So I love Discord because it's sort of like an early internet chat room. There's no advertisements. There's no algorithm. It's just our own little private space to talk to people that you know will be like-minded and inclusive and curious and passionate about the same things that you are. You get Discord access with every tier starting at the $3 caramel apple pops level. But if you want to be even more involved in that, we have got a really terrific movie party coming up this weekend, and our book club meeting is next week. So our next movie party event is this Saturday, August 27th, starting at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. And we're wrapping up our Summerween screening series with the 2019 creature feature, Crawl. I'm super excited to watch this with you guys because I've never seen it. And this is the first movie that I'll be screening that I haven't seen and I'm actively terrified to watch. So you have to come and keep me company, okay? The movie party benefits are available to Ghoul Gang members at the chocolate eyeball levels and the full-size bar levels. That's $10 a month and $16 a month. That's right, each tier has its own cute trick-or-treating themed name. Now, our book club meeting is coming up this Tuesday, August 30th, starts at 6 p.m. Pacific time, and we're going to be discussing the short story collection Ghost Summer by Tanana Reeve Dew. You don't have to read the whole book, or really even any of it. You could just pop in and enjoy the literate company of your fellow ghouls. And in September, we're celebrating the birth of Stephen King, who is the reason that I got into horror. Well, I should say my mom is the reason I got into horror because she was reading Stephen King all the time. And I'll never forget the Pet Sematary cover. That was the first one I can remember, her carrying it around with her and it being in different parts of the house and just feeling chilled by the cat on the cover of the book. And ever since then, I have just been absolutely devoted to Stephen King. So I'm excited to share my love with you guys next month. We're going to be reading Carrie, which is his shortest book and his most accessible, especially if you scare easily and you're into the more cozy vibes. There's definitely some freaky moments in Carrie, but I think it's the one that I would recommend to people who weren't really that interested in Stephen King. And then we're going to be watching a ton of his movies next month. Typically, I do 2 to 3 movies a month, but the next couple months, we're going to go hard. So sign up now, get involved for calendar Halloween, and then who knows? You might not ever want to leave. Get all this and more at patreon.com/itsalwayshalloween or click the link in our show notes. Now, before we pop our face into the mailbag and check the phone lines, I want to thank YouTuber Darling Desi for recommending It's Always Halloween on her latest Autumn Starter Pack video. Darling Desi has cultivated quite the elaborate and dedicated fandom of cozy cottagecore guys and gals, and her video about how to get into the fall mood is one of the sweetest, most cozy videos I've ever seen, and it's 30 minutes full of incredible books, movies, activities, recipes, TV shows, and podcast recommendations. And I'm so pleased to count us among one of her recommendations for how to have a perfect fall. So thank you, Darling Desi. The link to that video is in our show notes. You can also see the clip where she talks about what she loves about the podcast on our Instagram, and I'll post that in our Patreon as well. It really means a lot to me. You know, this is a little podcast that could, and to have it reach somebody with hundreds of thousands of followers and to be able to connect over our shared love of Halloween history and Halloween stories is just really special to me. And I want this podcast to grow so we can connect with more people all over and hear and preserve more stories of Halloween. You know, I was going through the mailbox this week because I pretty much left it on red all summer while I was prepping for Midsummer Scream. And I'm trying to wrap up, make sure I have all the information for the zines. Those are going into production soon. Joe and I have been working on that with Nathan, and I'm very close to the end, but I was just kind of going through making sure I had everything from everybody and reading everybody's submissions all at once, along with, eeeekmails sprinkled in there. It really hit me very hard this week. There were many times where I started welling up with tears. You share such beautiful personal stories about your lives, about your family, your friends. Thank you so much for entrusting me with your beautiful Halloween memories. And I hope the inclusion of them on this podcast helps them live on forever. I am a comedian. I have been a stand-up since 2011. And before the pandemic, I hosted a horoscope-themed storytelling show. And storytelling has always been really important to me. And I've really been lamenting it the last couple of years, really missing it, missing being on stage. And it didn't hit me until I was going through all of your stories this weekend that I'm still hosting a storytelling show, but I get to help people who maybe don't want to get up on stage, maybe don't want to hear their skull voice. And you let me tell your stories, and that just means the world to me. We are really creating an archive of Halloween history. I love working on the history episodes where I do the deep dives, and I know it's been a little few and far between on those because they are so time consuming, but I really wasn't thinking about how these stories you tell me are also history and how we are creating history and a written record really together. And I just really want you guys to know that you're a big part of preserving Halloween and that this is something that I couldn't do without you. And at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about us and this incredible project that we're working on together. That's why I'm so excited that the zines are going to be available for pre-order soon. When I have the exact information, don't worry, I will tell you as soon as I have it. But I think it's so cool to have this permanent, or I should say semi-permanent, record of so many of your memories all together. It just looks amazing. You're all so funny and creative and fascinating, and you have such deep passion and love and a sense of community within you. And I really think that this is going to be a special gift to give people in your life who you care about Halloween, or just something, a special keepsake for you to have forever to remember this time and to honor the traditions of Halloween. I'm psyched. And with that, let's hear some news stories, shall we? Let's jump in and take a call from the All Hallows Hotline.
Hi, Lucy. This is Leah. I am new to the podcast. I just started listening about 2 weeks ago, and I listen when my daughter is napping. So I'm still kind of early on in the podcast. I'm on the Small Frights cemetery episode, and you were talking about how people decorate their whole house from top to bottom and Halloween all year long. And last year, while on quarantine, I decided I want to do that, but I also have an eclectic style. So instead, I decorated one of my hallways in the house all Halloween. So it's called my haunted hallway. And I just love it so much because every morning when I wake up and I leave my bedroom, I walk through the haunted hallway and I get to see all the little spooky things that bring me joy. And it just puts me in such a good mood every day. And I think that if your listeners also had a hallway that they didn't know what to do with, or they didn't know how to decorate it because it's such a small space, just paint it real dark and spooky and then pop up some of your favorite Halloween artwork, and then it's a haunted hallway. Anyways, it's been great listening. I love the podcast so far, and I will keep listening until you stop. I'm also Sulfur Spraying Silver on Instagram if you want to follow me and my haunted hallway there. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Leah, welcome. We are so happy to have your shining lantern light join us on the giant It's Always Halloween porch now. I am absolutely obsessed with this haunted hallway idea. Never heard anything like that before. And you make such a good point that you don't have to be one of those people whose like whole house is dedicated to Halloween, because that's very difficult for many of us to do. But just picking a part of your house, and I love a hallway because hallways are liminal spaces, they're transitional. It's hard to know how to decorate them. Usually furniture doesn't go in there, and yet you don't want them to be bare. So the idea that it's like your own little haunted house as you move from the living room to the bedroom or the bathroom to the front door. You can tell I live in an apartment and I'm like, there's only 3 places to go to. But this is such a fun idea. You know what would be really cute and maybe not feasible depending on how often you use your hallway or what you need your hallway to accomplish for you, but how fun would it be to have all black lights in your hallway? That it would truly look kind of freaky, huh? Such a clever idea. And I also want to thank you for shouting us out on Instagram this week. Everybody, Leah is such a cool silversmith. You should definitely check out her work. She's actually, it looks like releasing some coffin-themed jewelry soon. So check out her Instagram, Sulphur Springs Silver. And that will be in the show notes as well. And I will tag her on the Instagram for this episode. This is such a fun call, Leah. Welcome to the community, and thank you for this fantastic idea. Now let's reach our little paws deep into the eeeekmail bag and see what's crawling around down there for us. This first letter has the subject line, Halloween is a big part of my family and my life. Hello, my spooky queen. I've been listening to your podcast for the past 3 weeks now. I listen to it while I deliver Amazon packages to keep my mind occupied, and you have succeeded at that, so I thank you. I just wanted to reach out and share how Halloween has basically molded me into who I am today. I have done so much in the name and the spirit of Halloween. Modeling, acting, making my own costumes, designing haunted houses, building props, and a ton more. It all started with my grandma, Mary Louise Francis, an October baby. Go Scorpios! That's right. Grandma loved Halloween and would go full out every single year. That passion trickled down to my mom, my brother, and me. Every Halloween when I was a kid, she would get me the newest Halloween edition Barbie doll, and I thought that was so cool. I couldn't wait to see what costume Barbie would be wearing each year. When we'd visit for Halloween, she made us ring her doorbell and say trick or treat. If we didn't meet her standards, she would open the door and say, "You guys could do better than that," and shut the door for us to try it again. We would show up at my grandma's house for trick-or-treating every year because her neighborhood was totally vibing with spookiness. Even though we didn't live that far from her, her neighborhood just seemed to be where all the fun was centered. Everybody on the block had something special going on, and I remember it being so amazing. I actually went to my very first haunted house during one of our trick-or-treating escapades. It was inside one of her neighbor's garages, and I was terrified. I did not fully appreciate the scarier side of Halloween when I was a kid. A lot of my family said that I was a major chicken, and I do remember feeling that way. But over the years, the scarier stuff grew on me and actually contributed to who I am today and the things I've accomplished. When I got a little older, I started to get into acting in school, which influenced my career throughout my life. Are any of you familiar with the famous Fangoria magazine? If you or the other lanterns are, I am happy to introduce myself as the Fangoria Scream Queen of 2011. I competed against 29 other competitors. I was the youngest out of all 30 women and the least experienced in acting at the time. I'd only been in one movie at that point, so I was super shocked when I won because everyone I competed with was outstanding. I did a monologue from The Shining as Jack Torrance. A few years later, I started working at haunted houses. The first one was a newer attraction at the time, and it was okay, but then my best friend Ellie got me a fantastic job with her at the second oldest haunted attraction in Nashville, Tennessee. This was exciting because she and I used to walk through there all the time as teenagers, and it was hands down our favorite haunted house in the area. Ellie went to makeup school in LA, so she was skilled at makeup artistry and knew how to make a haunted house come to life. Plus, when we were kids, we used to make our own haunted houses in her dad's garage, so we had experience. We actually ended up being the head set designers and concept designers for that haunt. I really miss the creative feeling of looking at a blank slate and thinking, what are we going to do this year? It was seriously one of the best times in my life. Eventually, the haunted house shut down due to money problems, but I carried my passion for haunted houses into my own home. One year, I even made a mini haunt in my backyard and had around 100 people show up. I have 3 kids of my own now, and I have passed my grandma's love of Halloween on to them. She passed away almost 2 years ago now. One of my favorite memories with her was during a family Disney trip. We went on the Haunted Mansion ride together, and I kept closing my eyes because I was afraid of something popping out at me. And she just kept poking me and laughing and saying, "The ghosts are going to get you!" Ha 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 ha. I just loved every moment I shared with her. On that last day that we spent together, I gave her a Halloween card, which I inscribed with, "Thank you for making me into who I am today." She teared up and gave me a big hug. I now have her ashes in a heart-shaped key necklace that sits inside my Haunted Mansion music box. Every so often, I will play the music for her, hoping she can feel my love. From your spooky friend, Melanie. P.S. My stage name is Bella Diavolo, which means beautiful devil. And then Melanie attached several amazing photos of her time working in haunted houses and winning the Fangoria Scream Queen Award, and some really cute ones with her and her kids dressed up for Halloween as well. So some of these photos are going to be featured in our upcoming Hallowzine, and the rest of them you can see on our Instagram at itsalwayshalloweenpodcast. Thank you, Melanie. So many amazing memories that you've created. I really love this one, especially about your grandmother. And I actually have a similar memory with my dad riding the Haunted Mansion ride when I was 3. I was absolutely terrified, but credit to my father, he did not threaten me. I was so young that I think if my dad said the ghosts are going to get you, I would have just bolted off of the ride and gotten lost somewhere in the mechanism. But my dad held me and sang Old MacDonald in my ear because I was so scared. And I think he had to do that during the Snow White ride and the Toad's Wild ride as well. Pretty freaky little dark rides. If you're only 3 and most of what your eyeballs have seen at that point is cats, then those Disney rides are a lot. I feel like I'm being defensive right now. I am not embarrassed of being scared of those rides. I read them recently, a year ago, for the first time since I was a kid, and I still think they're pretty scary. I did not need Isaac to sing Old MacDonald to me, but I wasn't not scared. But getting back to Melanie and her beautiful eeeekmail, thank you for sharing these cool stories with us. It sounds like you've lived a very Halloween-infused life, and you've gotten to experience so many different things. And I'm so happy for you that you've gotten to do all of this. And I love the way that your passion for Halloween has just been passed down from generation to generation. And looking at your sweet kids' faces in these photos, it looks like they are also loving Halloween and that they're going to continue the traditions that your grandmother set forth as well. And I just think that is so lovely, and that those are the types of stories we have to think about when there's panic news articles about kids not trick-or-treating anymore, kids not liking Halloween anymore. You know, this podcast is filled with really cool parents and kids who do love Halloween and are celebrating. And so let's just focus on the people who get it and are making it happen no matter what, like Melanie and her incredible family. Thanks again for this fantastic eeeekmail, and everyone stay tuned for the zine so that you can have a little copy of it forever and ever. Now let's head over to the hotline for a call about decor.
Hi, my name is Christine. I absolutely love the podcast. It is fantastic and what I needed for my very spooky soul. Someone, I think on a previous old episode of the podcast, mentioned that they collect Lennox figures or something of that sort for Halloween, or added another Lennox figure. And it brought up a memory, and it's something I still do to this day, kind of a Halloween tradition. To decorate for Halloween, my mom used to set up a little Halloween town. And it was, little houses that have like light bulbs in it. And she had one for each, me and my brother. I had a little ghost school and my brother had a little pumpkin house. And then we have like little figures and, little lights and trees and a graveyard that we put up. And I always loved helping my mom put that together. And it's something that's continued for years. I help her put it up even now. And it's gotten to the point where I've now started my own little Halloween village. And I absolutely love finding new little Halloween houses or little figures to put up. And I've gotten my fiance into it, which is fantastic. But so I was just wondering, like, does anyone else do that? Does anyone else create like their own little Halloween town? I would love to know if it wasn't just me out there. But anyways, stay spooky, stay awesome, and Halloween forever. Woohoo!
Christine, welcome, and thank you for this fantastic call. I love that you have a little Halloween town. I know exactly what you're talking about. We have had other lanterns call or write in about it, and I know there's a lot of listeners out there who also collect these little towns. I am desperate to do this because I think miniatures are the cutest thing in the world, but I don't have the space and I had to draw the line somewhere. So right now the line is solely at miniature Halloween towns because I think it could get very unhealthy for me very quickly. So that's something that if I ever have a house or I live in a space that has more than 2 rooms, then I will allow myself to dabble. But I think little towns are for the Halloween houses out there and not necessarily the Halloween cupboards. So everybody, let's talk about little Halloween towns. I would love to hear you guys' stories, any recommendations, favorite parts of your little town. I just think it's so sweet that they light up and, you can have all the lights off in a room and then see this tiny little spooky town. And it's just extremely cozy to me. Thank you so much for this call, Christine. I'm so happy that you're enjoying the podcast. We enjoy having you here. Up next, another little creature is crawling out of our eeeekmail bag. This one with the topic, combining costumes. Hello, Luce. I wanted to tell you about my Halloween costume from last year. I needed to find something for our annual Halloween party that my wife and I have been throwing for the last few years. While browsing through the Spirit Halloween store, I decided to get a costume of Garth from Wayne's World. The costume only came with the blonde wig and glasses, though, so I had to figure out what clothes I was going to wear with it. As I was looking through my closet, I noticed the costume that I wore the year before, which was a Ghostbusters jumpsuit. I decided to put it on again and go as Garthbuster. Have you or any other lanterns ever combined 2 costumes? Sincerely, Derek. Derek, I've read this eeeekmail many times, and I had never actually said the phrase Garthbuster out loud, and it's very funny to me. I love this, Derek. I hope it was a hit. Did people laugh? I hope they laughed. I hope every time you said it out loud, it tickled people because it's really tickling me. Also, you were Garth. You were a Garth who was also a buster. Of what because Ghostbusters are just regular men or women, as we were told by the woman comedy, that busts ghosts. They're regular people who bust ghosts. But you weren't a regular person who busted Garths. Imagine the problem plaguing our city. So many little Garths just running around posing the worst questions that society has ever heard.
Did you ever find Bugs Bunny attractive when he'd put on a dress and play a girl bunny?
No.
So Derek, please just set my mind at ease. Were you a Garth that was a Ghostbuster, or were you a Garth that busted other Garths? I will never stop thinking about this. I would love to hear from all of the lanterns about your hilarious combo costumes. I personally am not really one for like wordplay costumes or joke costumes. It's just not the way my brain works. However, in like 2010, 2009, I wanted to be Tippi Hedren's character from The Birds. And when I went to Spirit Halloween to get crows to put onto my vintage dress, they were totally out. It was Halloween weekend and I did kind of underplan, but I didn't realize that I really would not be able to find fake crows anywhere. This was in Columbus, Ohio too. Wasn't even like the biggest city, but could not find crows anywhere. I went to Michael's and Joann's and finally gave up and bought these really cute little songbirds that were meant to be like placed in wreaths. This was at Michael's. So you bought these little fake crafts birds and they were cute. They looked like robins and blue jays and finches. And so I got those and I wired them onto my dress, and then I drew these little speech bubbles and also wired those to each bird that said things like, "Don't let my cute demeanor fool you. I am quite bloodthirsty. And we have killed the crows and now we're coming for you." Little things like that. So not exactly a combo costume, but a twist on a classic. And that costume I actually sent into Bust magazine, which was one of my favorite magazines for a long time. It's a feminist pop culture magazine. Really great for young women. I mean, really people of all ages, but if you have somebody younger in your life, I was obsessed with it as a teenager and all through my 20s. So great physical media gift to give to a budding feminist in your life. Anyways, one of my crowning achievements was I sent the picture into them and they published it in their letters section because the costume was inspired by one of the costumes that they had written about in their Halloween section. So I was very touched to be in my favorite magazine. I will throw that picture up on the gram so that you guys can see that. And Derek, thank you for making me laugh. And I can't wait to hear from your fellow lanterns about their combo costumes because I am ready to giggle. Ooh, what's that bone-chilling sound? That's just another call coming in from the All Hallows Hotline.
Hello, Luce, and hello, Lanterns. This is Joshua from the Halloween Nation podcast. I can't believe that I am calling the All Hallows Hotline. I wanted to tell you a story of my favorite trick-or-treating experience. Growing up, I did not have friends. I was a weird little kid that other children just did not understand. So when you hear about people talking about their trick-or-treat squads that they went trick-or-treating with every year, I didn't have one of those. However, my neighborhood always had like a ragtag group of single trick-or-treaters like me that kind of unofficially shuffled from house to house somewhat together. You could join along and nobody would say anything because we all understood what it was like to be alone. A lot of times, I didn't even know these other kids that I was with, but their faces were familiar, like I'd seen them around school or whatever. Well, the year that I was 10 years old, we were joined by a girl dressed like your traditional, like, classic bedsheet ghost. I could see that she had black grease paint around her eyes through the holes in the sheet, and she had a length of plastic chains coiled around her neck. We got curious about who was under the sheet, so we asked her, and she spoke with a really heavy German accent and told us her name, though I can't remember what her name is now. She said she was a foreign exchange student and that this was her very first Halloween ever. We did have a German immigrant family in the neighborhood, and some of us remember hearing something about them having an exchange student living with them. But seeing the magic of a costume night and candy promises working on this girl's imagination really enhanced the evening for all of the rest of us. She was so excited, and it was infectious. It reminded us of how great Halloween could be. We're this group of misfits. We usually just quickly collected our candy and went home. She had us like skipping and laughing and joking as if we were as close as any of those other trick-or-treat squads. I went home that night convinced that I had made a new friend for life. Sadly, that was not the case. The next day, some of us tried to find this girl, and it turns out that the German family did not have an exchange student living with them. There were no new kids at school. Nobody had ever heard of her. And we soon realized that we never even saw her face because she wore the ghost sheet all night. Now, I know what you're thinking. She was a real ghost the whole time. I've chosen to believe that it was just one of those magical, miraculous mysteries that tend to happen at Halloween time. At least that's been my experience. And I thought she was real. I think she was a real girl from maybe another neighborhood, and there was miscommunications or whatever, but the universe took steps to make sure that I was in the right place at the right time, and so was she, so that I would feel like I had a friend. It was really a moment where I needed a friend, and I feel like on that Halloween night, that's what was provided to me. So I'm 42 years old now, but I will never forget the impact that trick-or-treat night had on me. And really, I just love the Halloween community and the inclusivity, especially that your podcast brings. I've been a long-time listener of It's Always Halloween, and really close to the beginning, and it's just great to hear about how you guys take care of each other, and you're very inclusive, and you want to make sure that everyone feels welcome, and I really love that. So in a way, we're all that trick-or-treat squad. So thank you for keeping that spooky. Also, I just wanted to tell you about one other thing. One of my longest standing Halloween things that I love is a blog. It is pumpkin rot, that's R-O-T, like a rotting pumpkin. So pumpkinrot.blogspot.com. And there's pictures. They've been operating a long time. They make these just amazing outdoor displays for Halloween time, a lot of DIY stuff. Now, fair warning, some of it can be a little intense. Some of the imagery can be a little bit graphic, but some of it, but most of it, I would say, is very just really fun, and it brings all of those spooky Halloween feels. So if you have time, check it out. I highly recommend it. Anyway, thank you so much, and I will talk to you more later.
Oh, Josh, this is one of my favorite messages I've ever received. I love the way that you talk about Halloween magic and that you kind of steered away from being a ghost story and just think of it as this incredible night that Halloween put out there for you. When you got to the part where you said that there were no new kids at school and that no one had ever heard of her, I got chills. I've listened to it a few times now, and each time the little hair stands up on me. And I feel like I have to look over my shoulder. Again, I know you're steering away from the ghost thing, but it's like so hard for my brain not to go there. Because as we established when we talked about the Disney rides, I am a scaredy cat. Okay, my biggest dream in the world is for that person to hear this episode and they call in and be like, I am that little girl. And then you guys reunite and we get both sides of the story. What a dream. You did such a great job of evoking the feelings of a really terrific trick-or-treat experience. And I just want to wrap this memory around me and sit in front of a fire with it. Truly such great storytelling. And if you guys are into Josh's storytelling, you have to check out his podcast, Halloween Nation. Josh and his co-host Leah are lanterns through and through. They appreciate all aspects of Halloween, and they've got a fantastic sense of humor, and they deep dive into topics that I haven't really heard anybody else talk about before. One of my favorites was their Unhallowed Confessions episode, where they talked about some secrets that they had about things that they felt bad for not liking. And there were some really fascinating reveals. Also, Josh, I commend you for recommending a Blogspot blog. I love that there are people in the year 2022 who are still using Blogspot. Blogspot. I had a blog. Who else out there did? Mine was feminist themed, of course, because I can't help but make things political. And it was called Arsenic and Glamour, which was a reference to the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical State Fair. Deep cuts. And I just really loved that era of like late aughts blogging. And I thought Blogspot was a very cool, you could follow a bunch of different blogs. There's a good homepage. People were writing long-formed pieces on there, which I think is great. And I really miss that. I really miss when we were more focused on our writing than just like these quick little videos, which not everybody is talented at making quick little videos. Some of us are long-winded. Not you though, Josh. You're perfect. Thank you so much for sharing this incredibly heartwarming story with us. And I know that the lanterns out there are loving it just as much as me. Oh, and lastly, when you called us your inclusive trick-or-treating squad, it made my heart melt. I love that. That's absolutely what I want us to be. Thank you. Lanterns. Did you ever trick-or-treat with a ghost? We want to hear about it. Call us on the All Hallows Hotline like Josh did at 802-532-DEAD. Or if you don't want to hear your skull voice, write us an eeeekmail at itsalwayshalloweenpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget, you can also follow us on Instagram at itsalwayshalloweenpodcast. And there are links to our email and our phone number on our Instagram bio as well. Like I said at the top of the show, if you love It's Always Halloween, please subscribe on Patreon. Patreon.com/itsalwayshalloween. It helps us make this podcast. There are other ways you can support us. You can always leave a one-time tip in our tip jar or buy It's Always Halloween merch from our Redbubble. And a free, easy thing you could do is leave us a 5-star review. Just a few sweet words letting us know what you like about the podcast so that other like-minded ghouls can find us. After last week, I got a lot of really nice supportive messages from everybody, and I want you to know that each one of those touched me deeply. I screenshotted all of them and I put them all into a folder entitled Kind Words so that I can look at that and focus on that, because there is way more support out there than there are detractors. And I know you guys have my back just like I have yours. And I want to thank everybody who went out and wrote a review. We have 3 new reviews right now that are so helpful. The most recent one is written by someone with the name Dead Baby Destroyer, and the title is All Treats, No Tricks. It's Always Halloween Podcast is a research-based podcast that explores the different themes, elements, and ideas that have haunted the history of Halloween. Luce takes listeners on a spooky journey through the past by giving historical examples of events and phenomena that have played a massive role in the development of the spookiest holiday of the year. It's Always Halloween does not shy away from topics that are to some uncomfortable. Cultural appropriation, racism, discrimination, and more have a direct link to not just Halloween, but nearly everything. Luce diligently brings forth well-produced content to combat the aforementioned things and does so in an entertaining and free way. It's Always Halloween is well worth the listen. Happy Halloween. This is an incredible review. Thank you so much, Dead Baby Destroyer. Not everyone has to feel like you have to write that much. However, this might be something that I use as a pull quote to support the podcast. So thank you for that. Really lovely words. And it definitely took the edge off from the people who are missing the point. This episode of It's Always Halloween was written and performed by me, Luce Tomlin Brenner, with help from your fellow lanterns, Josh, Christine, Leah, Derek, and Melanie. Thank you so much for writing and calling in with such charming stories. This episode was produced by the It's Always Halloween Patreon Ghoul Gang, with help from my co-producer, Pete Burns, who is also our incredible sound designer, theme music writer, and editor. Thanks, Pete. You can follow me at LTB Comedy on Twitter and Instagram, and Pete at Mittenberries on Twitter and Instagram. I also want to give a special shout out and thank you to Grimturn Nathan, who has been helping me put the zine together. Thank you to Joe at Displaced Snail, who is really spearheading the entire production. So I've never done anything like this before. Could not do it without him. And thank you very much to you, dear Lanterns, for tuning in to yet another episode of It's Always Halloween. I hope you'll come back next time, unless Garth busts ya.